very sadly missed, and I don't think it'll be possible to get a like-for-like replacement. I just hope whoever does come in can build on what Holbrook has done and take us forward, no matter what happens between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, and you talk about the way he's helped improve players. They've given him a couple of star players, haven't they? Let's not forget that, that he had Ben Barber, he's had Lachlan Coote and Kevin Niguama. He's had some big signings. But you look at some of the players that he's improved out of sight. Luke Thompson was a player that you weren't quite sure if he was going to make that next step before Justin Holbrook came in. Within a month or two of Justin Holbrook being at St Helens, I think in that time since then, so we're talking probably from 2 years back from now, he's been the best prop in the competition and one of the best props in the world consistently, week in, week out. And he was he didn't even suspect he might become that before Holbrook. He's taken Regan Grace and made him from being an exciting player to being a consistent and exciting player. He's brought in Matty Lees, Jack Ashworth. They've come on. And then there's the new young breed, people like Jack Wellesby, Bentley, Aaron Smith. It's not just that he's made existing squad players better, and I think he has, but and he's brought together these egos in situations where he's had to compete with bringing in some superstars into a side. Some players has moved position. He's made Johnny Lomax an infinitely better player than we all thought he was going to be. He had the skills and the talent, but he never seemed to have the application. He's got that now, and Justin Holbrook was a big part of that. And you know how hard it is for me to say all these words. But
I know. Thank you.
But the only player he hasn't improved is the only player you can't improve, and that's James Roby. Everyone else he has improved.
No, I think that's right. I think the one thing he has done with Roby is to pace him a little bit better during the season. So he's taken some of the workload off him and brought in a few players around like Bentley and like Smith to take a little bit of that workload from Roby's shoulders from time to time to try and pace him better through the course of a season. So you can't make Roby better, but you can at least try and eke out that skill for as long as we possibly can.
So, right, for argument's sake, because we've talked about all positives so far, for argument's sake, what if you don't win the Challenge Cup and you don't win the Grand Final, and you'll have fallen at late stages in those competitions 2 years in a row when you've been far and away the best side for most of the year? Would that tarnish the legacy, or do you genuinely feel like the team you've been watching, the rugby you've got to see every other week when you've been at the Totally Wicked Stadium, means that losing those big occasions is a blot, but not going to destroy the legacy over 2 years is left?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would destroy his legacy. I think what he's done for the team week in, week out, for those players, and for sort of bringing the club and the fans back together again, which they drifted apart over the past while. I don't think that can be wiped away by the fact that he might lose a couple of games at the end of the season. What I do think it would do is show that he's only 43. It's ridiculous. That seems very young to me, Mark. He's still a young and learning coach. You can see he's learnt a lot from last year, this year.
Yes.
I don't think this is the end of the Holbrook coaching summary, although we might find Gold Coast Titans a little bit more of a challenge in the NRL than he found sort of getting Saints back together. But I think it would mean that he would put question marks in people's minds as to whether he was one of the best coaches Saints had ever had. But in my mind, someone who sort of led and coached people in my own organisations in the past, I can see what a superb leader of people and developer of people he has been, and to my mind, that will always remain, no matter what happens over the next few weeks.
Fair enough. Let's talk a little bit about his potential successors then, because we suspect that you're going to look down under again and look at some of the assistants or some of the available coaches. Shane Flanagan's an available coach who was talked about for the Leeds job. I would hope he doesn't get the gig after some of the misdemeanours in his checkered coaching past. Despite being successful at the Sharks, it came with a cost of morality. But then there's some of the assistants out there. Jason Demetriou, Adam O'Brien, not the Huddersfield hooker. Is he the Roosters assistant coach? And they're two of the names near the top of the list. They're the Aussie names in the picture. Richard Marshall was mentioned by Alan. I'm not sure that he's gonna have done enough to take this club forward at this stage in the time that he's been there as assistant coach, so that'd surprise me a little. And the name that no one's really talking about, but to me I can't believe people aren't talking about, is the Salford coach, whose name now escapes me because no one's talking about him. Ian Watson. I think he would be a fantastic sign, and if you couldn't get one of these hot up and coming Aussie assistants, where do you think the search will be focused, and where is your preference?
I'm going to be very boring and sit on the fence here, because I'd never heard of Justin Holbrook when we recruited him. Honestly, I had to go and look him up on YouTube and Google him and find out what his background was. So what I want is Mike to do as good we know he's in Australia now. He went this weekend. I'd like him to do as thorough a job this time as he did last time. Recruitment's always difficult. You probably only get it right half the time in any walk in life. So it's a really hard job to do. I'd like them to do as thorough a job as they possibly can, and then we'll see where we are. It wouldn't surprise me if I've never heard of the next coach of Saints either.
Do you have any concerns that Holbrook might take some of these talented players that he's turned the careers around for over to the NRL with him?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, I think that happens. I think there's a really good relationship between Saints and Holbrook. So I think if players want to move off to the NRL, you know what it's like. Yourself, Mark Payne at Wigan.
I support the sell to the NRL club, so yeah, I know exactly what it's like.
So if players really want to go to the NRL, then you probably all, at the end of the day, you're probably not going to stand in their way. You're probably going to let them go at some stage. I think as long as we do it in a nice way, gentlemanly, end of contract or with reasonable transfer fees, that's fine. And I think it's possible that people like Thompson might decide that they want to go and play down in Australia, but that was the case whether Justin Holbrook was down there or not, I think.
Yeah, fair shout. Okay, let's rattle through some of the other news. Do you want to tell us what's been happening in London?
Yeah, so London Broncos have signed Guy Armitage after the former London Irish and Wasps back cross-codes to join the Super League club. The 27-year-old recently completed a 4-week trial period with the Broncos and has agreed a contract to the end of the 2020 season. Meanwhile, prop Ulsi Krasnicki has signed a new 2-year deal with the West London side. The 27-year-old rejoined the Broncos in May on a short-term deal after spells with Salford Red Devils, Toronto Wolfpack and Bradford Bulls.
Guy Armitage, I don't know if he's any relation to those other two Armitages that played for England a few years ago.
Surprised if he wasn't almost, wouldn't it?
But I think they've actually picked him up from Ealing Trailfinders, their landlords, as it were. So obviously if it doesn't work out, he's got somewhere to go back. But it's interesting, it's another player that rugby league is starting to tap into a different talent pool for. So hopefully that works out for the Broncos. Hull FC... Sorry, we're...
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I mean, I think we see a lot of, this week's the last week of the, it's deadline week, isn't it? So we're probably going to see quite a few of these sort of opportunistic win-win type signings going on, to try and squeeze the last out of, particularly for those teams that are in the battle at the bottom of the league at the moment.
Oh yeah, I think next week's going to be littered with us talking about Championship players who signed for Super League clubs.
You're going to need 3 hours just on the news next week, Mark.
Last year, I think we did an SLP short on the transfer deadline thing, but I think it was a bit more of a stir back in the Super 8 stage. We'll see if it's going to be the same this time around. Retirements time. Hull FC veteran Mark Minicello is to retire at the end of the season. The 37-year-old Italy international was in the side that won back-to-back Challenge Cups in 2016 and 2017. So this is a guy who's ended his career in the Super League after playing a million games for I think Gold Coast, weren't it, that he mostly played his time at down under. He was known over there as kind of a hard-working tackle machine. I think over here he's more a crabbing line runner who isn't that great at tackling most of the time, unfortunately. But a long and fairly notable career, you know, is certainly had trophy success when he's come over to this side of the world.
Yeah, and if you certainly talk to the people at Hull, you know, I think they've got a lot of respect for Minicello and what he's done for the club. Yeah.
Another person who lots of people at his club have a lot of respect for. Do you want to take us through the other big retirement news this week?
I will. Warrington Wolves former England forward Ben Westwood will retire from rugby league at the end of the season. The 38-year-old signed for Warrington in 2002 and has played 441 times for the Super League club, winning 3 Challenge Cups with the Wolves. He also played in 2008 and 13 World Cups for his country, representing England on 27 occasions.
Unsurprisingly, the listeners had some input on this. Mike Dodd, who's a Wire fan, said, "People like Benny are the reason I'm tired of watching overpaid prima donnas on a football field. He put his body on the line for fans, for himself and for his teammates. Benny Westwood was the epitome of this, a true legend, not only of the Warrington Wolves, but of the game itself. Such a legend that I named one of my cats after him, and yes, he is Ginger." Joshua's granddad said, and this one needs a hold my beer joke at the end of it, but Joshua's granddad says, "First Hock and now Benny, are there any thugs left in the game?" And then cut to Warrington and Catalan's players on Saturday saying, "Hold my beer."
Indeed.
And Tom Andrews said, "Great servant to the game, sacrificing his body, his knees, his elbows and massive head. Referees everywhere will be breathing a sigh of relief." I remember going to a Yorkshire-Lancashire game back in, it must have been, was it 2002 when he moved from Wakefield to Warrington, and he was in the Yorkshire side that day, and some Wakefield fans in front of us couldn't decide whether they were annoyed about it and hated him or thought he was fantastic and were gutted to see him go. And that was obviously when he was relatively young. He'd already played, I think, 4 seasons at that point, or 3, maybe it was at the end of his 3rd full season, but he moved to Warrington and has since played 400 games plus for the Wolves. He's been involved in countless trophy wins for them. He's been, you know, he's the back end of the Wilderspool era, you know, mostly the move to the Halliwell Jones and the new Wolves that have been a competitive side with good crowds and trophies, not the big trophy that they've always wanted, but you know, there's always next year, I'm sure, for that. But it's a cultural tone setter, and he's still going to be around the club, isn't he? Because he's involved with the PDRL setup there and the women's setup. Basically, he's involved with the community side of the club. So as much as you can criticise him for lots of stuff that he's done on the field, he's certainly developed a clothesline technique that was impressive and spurred Blake Green onto great things in the 2013 Grand Final. But you can't take away what an absolute stalwart he's been on a rugby league field, I think.
Yeah, he's certainly one of those players that would draw the word warrior. You know, he's always been a player that when Saints have played Warrington, you've always got your eye out for Benny Westwood, because you're never sure whether he's going to take one of the heads off one of your best players or whether he's going to stick those big arms out round the tackle and release a ball to someone coming through. Yeah, I think he has been a true servant for the Warrington club, and he's that sort of player that he'll be missed by rugby league, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Even if it's missed because you like to give him shit, you're still going to miss him. He was a character in opposition or for your own team, I suppose. Okay. Salford Red Devils centre Chris Wellham has extended his contract with the Super League team. The 32-year-old will remain at the club for the 2020 season. And Tom Andrews got in touch to say the Ginger Ninja, doing the opposite of everyone else at Salford and staying put, seems to have sorted his defensive woes out and knows where the try line is. Yeah, solid bit of business there. There's some other bits of business actually